Okay, I think we can start. I welcome everyone to the opening event of the Ukrainian Memory Week Berlin 2026. It's dedicated to making the space for Ukrainian memory within a larger European commemorative culture. This event is organized by Vice in collaboration with the platform Past Future Art and the Ukrainian Institute in Germany. This meeting, just a technical nuance, this meeting will be recorded and streamed throughout our platforms. I hope you were ready for it. Just for a note, I was asked to share with you another event on the topic of Crimea that will happen on the 16th of May in Berlin. The initiative Ukraina Cinema organizes the screening of the film Haymarma on a big screen, together with the discussion with Ahtem Seytablayev. So please search the event and join for that discussion as well. My name is Yelizaveta, Lisa, for international speakers, Mamon. I'm finishing my last 2 weeks of the Bachelor in Humanities, Politics, and Art in the Liberal Arts College in Berlin. My academic interests are collective, cultural, historical, communicative, and other types of memory. So I'm very glad to hold this discussion today. So let me start by saying a few words about today's topic and by introducing our speakers. The title of today's evening, as you know, is what we talk about when we talk about Crimea. And of course, when we think of Crimea, especially in context of the first week of May, as a traditional commemorative time for the Second World War, we remind ourselves of the deportation of Crimean Tatars, the forced deportation of Crimean Tatars that happened on the 18th of May, 1944, where more than 190,000 Crimean Tatars were deported from their homeland in one night. And until today, this event stays marginal in the European commemorative space, which is one of the reasons why we're here today. But this event is not the only worthy topic to talk about. And that's why we broadened the topic and further complicated it by drawing and being inspired by the homonymous exhibition of today's evening, currently on view at the Ujadowski Castle Center for Contemporary Art in Warsaw. This exhibition is realized by Past Future Art, and it brought together Ukrainian artists, but also Crimean Tatar artists in particular, reflecting on Crimea as a space of memory, identity, and loss following the Russian occupation in 2014. In connection with this amazing project, I would like to introduce our speakers, all of whom contributed to the curation and organization of this project. So firstly, I would like to welcome Katerina Semenyuk, curator, cultural manager, co-founder of the Past Future Art Memory Culture Platform, and head of the NGO Cultural Practices. Secondly, it's my pleasure to introduce Oksana Dovgopolova. Hello. Co-founder and curator of the Past Future Art Memory Culture Platform, PhD, professor at Kyiv School of Economics, Memory Studies Association member. And thirdly, I present to you Alim Aliyev, a Ukrainian human rights activist, journalist, and writer of Crimean Tatar origin. He serves as a deputy director general of the Ukrainian Institute and a board member of PEN Ukraine. Last but not least, I'm glad to give the floor to the Ignite speech opening this evening to Katerina Ritz-Rakul, director of the Ukrainian Institute in Germany and PhD in contemporary literature. Katerina, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you very much. And I'm very happy to see my dear colleagues, dear colleague Alim Aliyev here, and glad to listen to Katerina Semeniuk and Oksana Dovopolova, because actually we are. After that, I will run to the next event, which is also is a part of this Memory Week, the event we are holding in the Foundation for Flight Displacement and Reconciliation, together with that foundation and German War Grave Foundation, where actually our German partners were very interested to listen to our point of view on the changes of memorial culture today, because today when we face another ongoing war, we feel that the memory culture has to change, and it is changing. And we will talk about that just in 2 hours. Unfortunately, only online, only offline. So if you're in Berlin, then run with me and join us at 6. But here I want to talk a little bit about the topic we will be discussing today, and the topic of the exhibition. I will just touch on the aspect which is closer to my work, because you will speak with the makers of the exhibition later. And I would like to start with one obvious thought, that memory is not just about the past, it also shapes our understanding of the present, and it also shapes our future, or maybe what we are inclined to allow to happen in the future. And also, another obvious point which we need to challenge, another obvious thought that we need to challenge for me is that when we talk about the Second World War, we tend to talk and think in terms of nations. But the reality is far more complex, because if you talk about Ukraine as a part of Second World War, it's not just the biggest battlefield of it. It was also a home to rich and multicultural society, comprising Ukrainians, Poles, Jews, Greeks, Crimean Tatars, and many others, all of whom experienced the war and all of whom suffered its consequences. Remembering and examining this diversity is important today. Always important, but today it is especially important, because it reminds us that history cannot be owned by a single narrative. It also challenges us to recognize how easily complex societies can be reduced, simplified, or erased. There is also another dangerous aspect, I think, of oversimplifying history, of attributing memory and recognition primarily to one dominant nation. Like here, being in a German context, for example, remembering has often meant, and sometimes still means, focusing on a Russian-centered narrative of the Second World War. Such perspective can obscure the experiences of other societies, and does obscure them, but also it limits our ability to understand and respond adequately to the challenges of today, like it did happen in Germany. Nevertheless, Germany has demonstrated that openly confronting the past can lay the groundwork for accountability. As war once again is raging in Europe, memory once again, I think, becomes the moral task. And not only for Ukrainians, but also for the international community. And particularly striking example in all of this is indeed Crimea. Because even if it has historically been a crossroads of cultures, for Crimean Tatars, it was just a home. And when in 1944, Joseph Stalin, not Hitler, but Stalin, forcibly deported Crimean Tatars in masses from Crimea, an act that destroyed communities and attempted to erase their presence and their nation actually entirely. And what makes, for me, Crimea especially significant today is is this repeated pattern of a diverse place being subjected to forced change, to erasure, and to control. Today, again, under Russian occupation, Crimean Tatars are facing repressions and are facing the danger of erasure. Not only their institutions are restricted, but also their personal voices are silenced, physically silenced partially by death, and their history is being challenged once again. So this is why this memory matters so deeply. It is not today, because it is not really just about remembering, right? It's about forming our understanding of today and today's problems and today's challenges, and it should inform our decisions and our actions today. And to remember, especially Crimea, is to understand how fragile cultural survival can be. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Katerina. I hope that we will see each other at the other events happening this week. Should we? I think we should start already the conversation with our speakers, building on these insights of importance of memory and its influential role in post-2022 discursive landscape. Could you tell a little bit more about the process of making this exhibition, about your choices, your curatorial choices, but also about its concept, and what goals does it set in this particular context as a cultural diplomacy project in times of war?
If I may, I will start. Yeah. Hello, dear colleagues, dear friends. It's a pleasure to talk with you. And for us, it's really important to be a part of your program, because when we are talking about Crimea, we're also talking about memory and about voices. When we, to be honest, we conceived this project before the full-scale invasion in Ukraine Institute. Because I'm, as you mentioned, I'm originally Ukrainian Tatar, yeah. And one of the main goals, is to talk. It was to talk about Crimea through the perspective of contemporary art, not only traditional art. And that's why we, in 2024, yeah, I think, yeah, in 2024, we announced a competition which the past future art rightfully won. And after that, together with Oksana and Katerina, we started to create this exhibition. And it's many thanks for my co-curators, because together with them, dreams comes true. To be honest, that's why it's our first iteration of this exhibition in Poland, in Warsaw. But hopefully, this exhibition will travel across the world. And for us, this exhibition emerged from a need to speak about Crimea, not only as a territory, but as a living space of experiences, memories, and of course, resistance. And conceptually, we aim to bring together different voices, artistic, personal, and historical, to reflect the very complexity of Crimea. And that's why we combined Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar artists who worked on contemporary art. And this first iteration in Warsaw, as for me, it's a great opportunity not only to talk to to audiences about Crimea, but also it's a dialogue between our artists. And Katerina, Olga, Oksana, sorry, please, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe you could describe a little bit for the people who haven't been there, what kind of experience it is to walk through the exhibition as a visitor. What kind of works do you see, and how did you decide on those works?
Maybe I will enter the chat with some exhibition photo of the exhibition. I will propose like this to not to just to speak, but also to see something. One moment, I will try to organize this screen sharing. One moment. So, because I think that people who are in the chat haven't seen the exhibition. So, do you see now some photos?
Yeah.
Yes,
it's okay.
yes.
Okay, but I can see you. Okay, but I will try. Okay, yeah. Like how to express the experience, maybe at least to give some idea on how it looks like. We really thought on this way of looking, so we worked on exhibition design, and we of course spent a lot of time on choosing artists and topics and etc. And that's why actually, and we wanted to take so much topics. So we choose this title of the exhibition, so to not to focus on one or several things, to show this diversity of topics. And it's not the end. I mean, it's not. I think that even we didn't in this exhibition we didn't cover all the topics we wanted, of course, and the idea to show it once again in other countries, this addition of the to also to work with more topics, but of course it's as Lim said, it's both its identities, its mixed identities of, for example, Crimean Tatar artists and being Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar. Водночас допомагайте.
Simultaneously.
Yeah.
Simultaneously.
Yeah, so and also feel of loss and LGBT topic, and a lot of themes which are under this title, and you see it on the photo. And we also worked with a great design studio, 3Z studio from Kharkiv, on this approach to identity, which is also a part of the important part of the exhibition. And now I'm showing I'm not showing. I'm sorry, what is happening? And now, okay, you see
Yeah.
yeah. Unfortunately, you see something. So Zamek Uyazdowski was the first location to show this exhibition, and now it's on show till the end of June. If somebody has this possibility to visit, you are invited. The next week we also have a public program and curatorial tour and a series of discussions. So in case you are in Warsaw, once again, you are invited to meet, or till the end of June to visit the exhibition. I don't know, maybe do we have like more time to stop on each artwork? No, we don't have enough time. So I will just maybe mention Pavlo Makar's Simferopol landscape. At least you have imagination on how the exhibition looks like, and maybe some names of the artists. So as I said already, Pavlo Makov is starting the exhibition, and then to the left, video artwork of Vlodka Kaufman and Khalil Khalilov. Then you see, this is the still from the video, Sevilla Narimankizi. with a new artwork firstly presented here. It is called Lar, which means in Crimean Tatar language, it means it marks plural.
It's
Yeah. Roman Mikhailov with Black Sea, Emine Ziadin. I am
a
the
daughter of my father.
Then curatorial video on historical aspects of seeing Crimea on the TV. The stand created by Alexander Burlaka, which refers to modernistic architecture of Crimea, and it's like seagull, but it also stands for the newspapers which are presented there in exhibition, and it has 4 languages. And important thing that exhibition actually all the materials, it's in 4 languages, Polish, English, Crimean, Tatar, and Ukrainian. And it's also kind of curatorial decision. Then Yuri Ivanov, with the long title of the artwork. Oksana, can you repeat this? maybe
What?
Who remember curators? Yeah, so okay, we will come back to this. Then Alexei Borisov, a Kharkiv-based artist, who is creating this series, so Yuri Ivanov, this series of reflecting on loss of Crimea, and he started his diary from 2014 from the occupation, and he continues. So he has more than 200 such smaller, bigger artworks, and this horizontal line, it's presented here in the exhibition, only the part of this artwork. And then Oleg Tistel, then Rustem Skibin, with the chevrons with Crimean Tatar identity, Anton Shebetko, Semis, and Elmira Shemsedinova, Tense Horizon. And the end of the exhibition, it's Dark Room with Cypress Tree by Vitaly Kohan, and we can't see here, but it's moving around, and it's quite meditative room. It's not so big, it's dark, there are no windows, and etc. And this sculpture which is moving around, and we create this like final spot, this space to reflect all this way and all this artwork you see below, because it's like small and you can be alone there, and quite reflecting and meditative. So maybe this is the idea of what we are speaking about. I mean, how it looks like. Oksana, maybe you continue.
So if we speak, you can imagine the common vision of the exhibition. So it was important to show to our guests their idea of exhibition. And the question was about the experiences, about experiences of visitors. And our idea was to create such a space where we can't propose the answers. We try to push our visitors to ask themselves, I see something which I didn't imagine about Crimea. So that's why I don't know something about Crimea. I need to go further to understand. So that's it was our idea to show that each of us have our own part of Crimea optics. And it's very important not to stay only in one layer, not to see only one part of this experience. and to propose people to seek their questions, not answers, but questions themselves. So really, we propose our curatorial tour with a very short historical context and so on and so forth. But everybody can live in this exhibition without our curatorial tour, only speaking and conversating with artworks. And we went through the personal experience of artists, and these personal experiences are very, very different. Some of so all the artists are Ukrainian artists, and part of them are Crimean Tatars. Part of them were born in Crimea, part of them not born in Crimea. Somebody lived in Crimea, somebody didn't live in Crimea and visited Crimea for different aims. And all these people have their own feeling of loss, their own feeling of their own vision of future. And this exhibition is not about mourning, is not about only about loss, but about the dream. So each of our artists dream about the future. So our artists who had not, who were on the opening, not all the artists were at the opening, but they have no preliminary conversation among themselves, but each of them said, I have a dream. I have a dream what I will do next day after Crimea liberation. And at the opening, we understood that this exhibition, that our project is not only about loss, our project is about dream. So maybe shortly the answer for your question.
Thank you so much. And I think that it's very interesting that you're mentioning the questions with which the visitors come out of the exhibition. Maybe, sorry, I have a trouble maybe addressing this question. I would assume maybe Alim could answer. How does the experience of Ukrainians visiting this exhibition differs from the experience of international audience, and which sort of questions or blind spots that people discover are somehow a part of a larger lack of knowledge among the international audience about the topic of Crimea, and what are these where are the blank spots on this map of knowledge, and which questions arise most often?
Yeah, I will start with from the first part of this question about different experiences of Ukrainian audience and international audience. As we mentioned before, it's the first iteration of this exhibition, and it's international exhibition. What important to mention that during all the times of Ukrainian independence is the first contemporary art exhibition for international audience about Crimea. And that's why we mostly focusing to our international audience. But of course, when we are talking about Ukrainians, for Ukrainians, Crimea, it's not only about the nostalgia, about their own experiences on the peninsula, their own thoughts, dreams, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, but also Crimea, it's for Ukrainians, it's a crucial existential part of Ukrainian statehood. That's why when we talk about some peace dealing processes, of course, for Ukrainians, it's important to include Crimea in the frame of these peace negotiations, for example. yeah, because as I said before, for us it's important. And when we talk about international audience, European audience, it's also this exhibition about questions. Yeah, this exhibition asks questions, not give answers. But also one of the questions, what means Crimea for Europe? Because for us, it's clear what means Crimea for Ukraine, Crimean Tatars, Ukrainian citizens at all. But what means Crimea for Europe? Yeah, and what we can do together to not only to talk about Crimea in a political level, but when we are talking about political prisoners, when we are talking about recolonization of peninsula, when we are talking about our peoples, when we are talking about agency of Crimean Tatars. And I will try to build the bridge to your second part of your question about stereotypes, about propaganda, about broken alliances about Crimea. Because, as Crimean Tatars joked inside our community, every single Crimean Tatar should be a historian to explain the history of Crimea. That's why now, every single Ukrainian should be a historian to explain the history of Ukraine. Because during decades, and not only decades, during the centuries, Russia has always tried to impose its version of history of Crimea as a originally Russian land. And if we see this narrative, Russian narrative about Crimea, they're trying to show the period of baptism of Rus on Crimea, and after to jump into the period of the first annexation of Crimea by Catherine II in 18th century. But they totally lost this medieval period of the history. And they're trying to cut the statehood of Crimean Tatars, the Crimean Khanate, from the 15th century. They're trying to talk from the 13th century. Sorry, they're trying to talk about Crimea without indigenous people, without Karais, without Krimchaks, of course, without Crimean Tatars. And now our role is to reclaim our own voices. It's to talk about our own history, not only about the genocide of 1944, but talk about the connection between Crimea and mainland of Ukraine, between connection between Ukraine and Europe. And that's why this exhibition, it's as for me, it's a good reason to talk about comprehensive topics and about challenges, but also to talk about our common vision of Europe together with Crimea, including Crimea. Sorry for such wide answer.
No, it was my very complex question, probably. Thank you so much. So you mentioned reclaiming voices and history and this different meanings of Crimea for Ukrainians, for Crimean Tatars, for European audience or like European community, larger European identity. I wanted to ask Oksana about bridging this, about the possibility or the impossibility of bridging these different perspectives and historical memories that are in tension between each other, and ask you whether you could imagine the shared language of memory to talk about Crimea, the one that, I mean, it's a little bit of a speculation here and a provocation, of course, because we talk about complexity, but how do you see this tension being resolved, or will it always remain, especially in relation to European, like pan-European identity and Crimean role in it?
Well, thank you for this question. Really, it's very important because our main intention was to create such optics in which we can see Crimea differently, but deeply. So our idea was to work in such optics when we see the different layers of Crimea history. And when we see these different layers, we see how important is Crimea for Europe. And really, our main message that through this conversation about Crimea, Europe, we spoke about exhibitions in Europe, yes, in Warsaw, in some other countries. So our idea was to create such a message for Europe. Look, you can reload your understanding, your own understanding of Europe, not of Crimea, not of Ukraine, but of Europe. Because when we see all these connections, not only the very small period of presenting of Crimea and Russian Empire, but to see this long period of history of Crimean Khanate, a long period of classic influence to Crimea. And really, during our public program in Warsaw in middle of May, we will organize such a conversation about Crimea as a place of strength in European imagination, because really for now it is not so obvious. Then for centuries Europe saw Crimea as a very powerful place of strength, and they put their hopes into Crimea. And really, so European philosophers of the epoch of Enlightenment, they imagined their emergence of a new nation, Ukrainian nation, which will be born in Crimea. So in 18th century, it was obvious. And after the end of 18th century, through the great efforts of Russian Empire, which Ali mentioned, yes, this deep layer of our common history, of the common history of Europe was lost. Now we need to make it visible. So it doesn't mean that collective memory of Poland, of Ukraine, of Galicia, Ukraine, of southern Ukraine, and Crimea, Ukraine, that they will be equal. They will be different. But the optics of this deep history, in which the common destiny of Europe, Ukraine, Crimea, with different parts of Europe, yes, if we will create such an optics, we will create not a common collective memory, but a common vision of future. So memory is always about future, it's not about past. So we want to show these different optics of Crimea to help people to imagine the future of Europe. So maybe I will answer this way.
Thank you so much, Oksana. I want to address this question to Katerina now. Seeing the Crimea as a place of strength, but also working on this exhibition, it actually was a new information for me that you started working on it before the full-scale invasion. How the ongoing war and the sensitivity and the also curatorial ethics influenced this process, and what do you see as main strengths of this medium of contemporary art that other forms of diplomacy cannot achieve in changing the narratives and understandings of Crimea as a place of strength?
Yeah, I will give a little bit clarifying that Ukrainian Institute, actually the organization who decided to work with this topic and to realize kind of such a project on Crimea for international audience. Then they invited us. I mean, yeah, so we, as a past future art, we started to work on this topic 2 years ago, already during full-scale invasion. Yes, our topics are memory and using instruments of art, working through the memory, but before that, we work with other topics, and only Ukrainian Institute, who is in charge of our attendance for this topic, actually, I can't imagine we are doing it by ourselves. Actually, it's really important collaboration. I can't imagine we realize this project without a limb. So I think it's really good collaboration and good in the way of combining skills, combining different
Backgrounds.
backgrounds, yeah, to create such a project, such a complex project. Of course, we can't imagine one organization and one person is realizing it. So, yeah, this is important. That we finally realized this project already during the full-scale war and found a possibility for this. And other things that, of course, when we were choosing artists, it was important that it is safe for them to take part and to speak on this topic. And of course, it was a question that we take artists who left the occupied territory. Because there are like 2 points. If, of course, there could be a situation when somebody can't leave, and this is not the discussion point, but who could be artist there, and what is the role of artist of being critical and etc. And for most of the artists we know, it was important to leave the occupied territory to continue to be artist. And this is one point, to be critical. Then, and to be honest, and actually to be free to express what you want to express. And for artists, it is important. Freedom, I mean, of expression of what you are going to say. Then other point, that actually what is safe, is it safe to speak? Because it's, you know, like there are some artists who does not use, for example, real name. I mean, not, I will not call it today, but I imagine the situation. But for example, artist left the occupied territory, but his family is there, and it's not safe from to be like public person. So, of course, our sensitivity started from this, from safety. Then, of course, we thought of our curatorial approach of us with Oksana as a curatorial duo, as we worked for already like 7 years together. So it's not like the first international exhibition connected to the current war for us. We realized really great exhibition in Kunstmuseum Stuttgart in 2023, and then we had a project in Belgium, in Malta. So we always speak about the war actually through the art, but now we speak on Crimean topic also. Any exhibition actually described war as literally, you know. So this is our approach, that our decisions, that we don't want to use literally images of war. Actually, there are a lot of points why, but one of them that actually, from our point of view, it does not work. If we can scare, if it could be possible to scare, and then the war ends, you know, like, and yeah, but our experience is like that you can touch people, not scaring them, but actually giving them a possibility to reflect on other ways, not to be scared. But it's like also very general, but kind of our approach. And then, if to say about this exhibition, it's not educational exhibition, it's art exhibition. It was the idea not to educate people, but of course it depends on the viewer. So in any project, in any exhibition, so somebody could just perceive, like to see the art, to reflect the art, and somebody is touching some topics and then go to develop it to learn it by himself. So of course it's free territory, it's free space when you can do what you want. But the idea, of course, of why you asked about the art. Yeah, you asked why is this instrument? Because I think that it's really free form of connecting to the topic. You really can stay just with the image. You can go deeper, you can go to discussion, you can go for more knowledge. And it's not educational, it's more interactive. Yeah, maybe like this, Oksana, maybe you want to add something. You are muted.
Mike, yeah.
Sorry. Maybe art can create such emotional way to feel some problem. No academic field, no politic field can't propose such instruments which put a person in situation when we can share emotions. And when we see this emotional sharing, and all the works presented in our exhibition are such, yes, you can understand a story which a person, an artist tells through some our own emotions, some our own experience. And sometimes we can't imagine that a person can meet such an experience, can meet such an emotion. Yes, so for example, as at the beginning of our work on this project, Alim said for us, do you know the main association of Crimean Tatar people with Crimea? And we asked, what is the main association? It's ruberoid. Such a building material, very cheap and very harsh, black material. For many people, the main association is warm sea, palms, food, very tasteful food or something. And here is ruberoid, yes. And in our exhibition, documentation of performance of Vlodka Kaufman and Khalil Khaliv is about this. And people are surprised. They never thought about this. And you can emotionally react for this. And such an emotion could be the starting point of the new a new experience. So our exhibition, as Katerina said, is not educational, but when a person open for him or herself that, so the main association is ruberoid, yes, the next step will be, I will go to find some information about this. And so this was our idea. So each work in this exhibition is about emotions. So a drawing of Alexei Borisov about his dream. I dream that it will be early morning, 4 a.m. when I will go to Crimea at my car. Yes, so it's and you feel this emotion of dream, this emotion of hope, this emotion of loss, and some wounding. Yes, so through these different emotions, we can provoke reflection of our visitors. So the project CMEs of Anton Shebetko. Really, I saw a person who is very practical, our visitor, very practical, very rational, a person which don't allow her emotions to go out. And she stayed before these screens with drag queens dancing and so, and she started to cry because she said they are so cool, they are so free, they are so happy. And she said to me, I see to these screens, to these videos, and I think about my native Odessa. So you see, the ways of these reflections could be absolutely different, but it was our aim not to create one message, which was showed from different sides, but to create different messages, different points of emotional meeting, which are necessary to go further. Thanks.
Very, very strong analogies. I felt like I lived through them slightly. I have a question from the audience. What are the years of the artworks? Are they all contemporary art, or some of them are older? So what are the years of the artworks? What is maybe the earliest work and the latest work?
The younger is 2025 by Sevilla Nariman-Keziz. This is newly made artwork actually for this exhibition, and this documentation of the performance, which we mentioned already by Vlodko Kaufman and Khalil Khalilov. It's also like 2 artworks, 2025. Some of them are serious. So they started, for example, 2014, and artists continue. So it's like several artworks like this. And the oldest one is artwork by Pavlo Makov. It is 1988. 88, the period when Pavlo Makov, very famous Ukrainian artist now, then he was like young artist and he just started his career, and he lived in Simferopol, and he spent actually some time in Crimea in Simferopol. So he created this artwork there, so it's quite old. So this is from his private collection. He gave us for the exhibition. It is called like Simferopol Landscape, and this artwork actually marks his series of specific series for which Pavlo is known. So this is one of the first artworks actually from that period.
Thank you, and dear audience.
Most of the artworks are created after occupation. So this choice for this exhibition. We have some ideas for other editions. And we have interesting ideas for other editions of the exhibition. We will not have like the same artworks, the same topics. So we have ideas to show maybe even older artworks, but it is also the question of museum collections and what is possible to show. We also had one idea, it was impossible to take it from Ukraine now. It is also some limitations on logistics and etc. Yeah, so the idea to show more, even more older artworks, but like in other editions.
Thank you. I want to tell our audience that you're free to share your questions here in the chat or on whichever platform you're watching us. They will reach me eventually, and I can integrate them into our discussion. And I wanted to ask Aline about the strength of this dream and hope and freedom of reflection that this exhibition provides in a more political sense, and the as a maybe stimulus or acceleration for political action. I mean, obviously, politicians would potentially visit it and there would be a response, but maybe you see already some responses to the exhibition, and how you connect this emotion that Oksana talked about a lot with the call to action and the active responsibility to resist the occupation today.
Yeah, thank you, Elizaveta, for this question. Yeah, this exhibition raises complicated questions, and Oksana and Katerina talked about it before. And for us, it's also this exhibition also about the main value of Crimea, about people, because we are talking a lot about territories. Yeah, but the people who stay in Crimea, who live in Crimea, who has strong Ukrainian soul identity, and who preserve their own identity, Crimean Tatar ethnic identity or Ukrainian ethnic identity. It's for us is one of the main topics. That's why across the exhibition we talk about different questions. For example, one of the questions of the role of the women in Crimean Tatar family, the connections between Crimean Tatars inside community, and Eminezia Din raised this this topic as, for me, in very high quality. But of course, even during this 1.5 months, a lot of different politicians, I know that also MPs from Germany visited this exhibition. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine also visited this exhibition, and a lot of diplomats came to our opening. And it's about emotions. It's about telling stories, and about, of course, call to action, not only in a political way, but in a human way, to talk about these people, to support families of political prisoners, to support the activists, to support the initiatives, cultural, educational initiatives that strengthen Crimean Tatar and Ukrainian identity inside Crimea, and to communicate with the people, because one of the main reasons for today it's to give understanding for our people in Crimea that they are not alone, that a lot of people, not only in Ukraine but worldwide, know about them and support them. And this message, one of the main messages for us. I talk with our people in Crimea every day, in different regions, and they need this feeling, this emotional connection from Peninsula, because time plays against us. We are living in two parallel realities, but art is a chain that could unite us from two sides of this artificial border. That's why we're talking, of course, we advocate the topic of Crimea and the inhabitants who still live in Crimea, inside political actors, and inside not only in Ukraine but outside of Ukraine, of course. And we are talking about Crimea also through this perspective of this recolonization, of the settlement colonization, of the trying to change identity, but also trying to militarize of consciences of the children in Crimea, for example. That's why it's a complicated process, but we should do our homework now, because after the liberation of Crimea, after the occupation of Crimea, we should come back to the peninsula not as strangers, but as natives, as relatives, as friends. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Very strong messages that hit into the heart. I don't even know. I think we reached the circle, the circle back of our discussion. Maybe just the last question from me. Answering the question, what do we talk about when we talk about Crimea? What are your personal answers to the question of this exhibition?
Personal, Alim, we will start from you. Your personal answer for this question is more natural, most natural, and these words ought to be the first.
For me, when I talk about Crimea, I talk about a part of my blood and about my home, and of course about our common future.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's about integrity of our country, about the deep history of our country, and about future not only of Ukraine but of Europe.
To keep from crying, I was making an exhibition.
So yes, to find the answers and your own personal spots, it would be advisable to go to the exhibition itself. I thank you so much for this conversation. It was very heartfelt and very meaningful. I will think about it in the aftermath when we finish, and probably go cry also a little bit. So thank you so much. Let's stay in touch, and if some of our audience will have some questions afterwards, I will provide my email, or you can just email them to the Vici email, which we will collect, and I will gladly pass them to our speakers today. Thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And hope see this exhibition in also in Germany.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
See